Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the NBA Front Office Show. We are just one day away from the official start of the NBA season. Can't wait. We're going to break down some of the major awards for the season, but we also have a little bit of news to get into first. But Keith, the first thing we really have to get to last night, what a game. The Cowboys and your Patriots. Like, if nothing else, I know your Patriots came out on the losing side of it, but if nothing else, it was a fun football game.
Yeah, it was back and forth, and it's kind of all I'm really looking for this year. It's like when you root for a terrible NBA team, you want them to lose every game by one
Right.
point at the buzzer, and then you get you pile up ping pong balls. So yeah, it's funny because people want to come at me all the time personally and as well as on social
Yeah.
media and try to stir stuff up, and it just doesn't get to me. I mean, six Super Bowl banners hang in the stadium, so it's not going to bother me all that much that they're in the middle of a rebuild. It's we had 20 amazing years, so I'm content with where things are
It's
right
so
now.
funny that we just have this kind of general sense in sports. Like, I've noticed this a ton with like the Brooklyn Nets right now. We saw this effect with the Warriors. Of course, this has happened with the Lakers in the past too, where you get kind of the bandwagon thing where suddenly people are talking that you never heard from before.
Nope.
Like, suddenly
Yep.
there's all these Nets fans that are saying all these different things all around different all over the internet, right? Nets fans are just super loud, and I'm like, you guys didn't exist 2 years ago. Like, where
Yeah.
is all this coming from? Nobody was saying anything. And so you see that effect in sports where people want to be on the winning side. They want to crow when everything is going well. But then when times are tough, it's like they're nowhere to be found. So that's always kind of an annoyance in sports. But I'm glad that you can look at it and say, hey, at least we're in a rebuild right now. Our quarterback got some good experience, and we can move forward.
Yeah, I mean, and like you said, it was a great game on a crazy plays finish. But let's talk some basketball, man. One
Well,
sleep
I
until
have
the
to say
NBA season
we
is here.
we did have a little bit of a bet
Oh, we
around this
did.
game,
We
so
did.
I've got to
Yeah.
put up. Now you're the biggest Dallas Cowboys fan. I got to put up your Cowboys graphic. So let me grab that while you're
Perfect.
introducing some of the NBA stuff that we've got to do.
If I knew
There it is.
how I would have changed my
There it
background
is.
to a Cowboys background here on our recording system, but I'm not sure I know how to do that. So anyway, look at you drinking right out of the
I know,
Cowboys mug
and you
too.
know,
Cowboys colors
and
on.
it's so kind of
Man,
fake too because my wife is really the Cowboys fan, but still, it's all in good fun.
a happy wife, happy
Exactly.
life, right? Yeah. So NBA, one more sleep until games start. So this is a big day for us. So we're gonna quickly rip through some of the latest news, and then we're gonna get into our
Mhm.
season predictions and all those things that we think are gonna go on with the league. So latest news, big news
Yeah.
this morning. Jaren Jackson Jr. reaches a contract extension with the Memphis Grizzlies, 4 years of 105 million. Feels a touch high. For Jackson, but I think there's a couple things at play there. I will not be surprised when we actually see it if there's a pretty heavy incentive or bonus money involved in that. We've
Hmm.
seen this over and over and over again this offseason, and I think Memphis would want to protect themselves a little bit due to injury. And you guys know we'll share all those details with you when we actually have them available to share. But I also think a number of people were in my mentions on Twitter saying this is an overpay, this guy isn't that good, and blah blah blah. Now, if you believe he'll never be healthy,
Yeah.
fine. I can't argue with you on that. Then you're absolutely correct. But if you think he's going to get healthy, this guy is an unbelievable all-around offensive talent and a great defensive player as well. He's a great shot blocker. He's quick enough to switch on the small guys. Offensively, he's really an unreal shooter. He is one of the best shooting bigs the game has ever
Hmm.
seen. I There's a tweet that I put up a couple years ago when the season was on pause, and now I went back and found it again. It's him, Carl Anthony Towns, and Channing Frye for bigs at the kind of volume and percentage that they hit at. It's that's it. It's those three guys, and we all know how good Cat is. We know what kept Channing Frye in the league
Yeah.
for a decade plus was his shooting. So, Jackson's healthy. I feel really good about this one for the
Yeah, I mean,
Grizzlies.
look, it's a bet on his upside because if he does hit, his ceiling is very, very high. And you can say, well, he hasn't been healthy and all that. Look, in the preseason, tiny sample size, but in the preseason, he's shooting 48% from three. That's not sustainable, but it just goes to show that he is a very, very good outside shooter, can block shots for you. He is if he can play 30 minutes a night, he's a 20-8 guy. He's that type of player.
Yep.
And so if the Grizzlies believe, okay, he's finally healthy, the injury stuff from last season, that was more flukish, we believe he's going to be healthy moving forward, then this is a very worthwhile gamble. I think you're right. If they built in some protections in terms of, he hits certain games played markers and things like that, then this becomes an even better deal for them. But I don't have a problem with it, just because this is the kind of guy that you bet on, because the ceiling is so high for him. And I think that's just an important move for the Grizzlies. Lock up a piece of their core moving forward. I like the way he combines with John Morant. So I don't have a problem with this deal from the Grizzlies. Again, I think a lot of people compare it to Mikal Bridges from yesterday. And they say, oh, why did Jaren Jackson Jr. get so much more? I think his ceiling is higher than Bridges. And so I kind of expected him to get a little bit more, even if I think we have a bit more of a known commodity in Bridges.
Yeah, I agree. And I think what will happen with Jackson, like I said, I think, Kay, and the point you were making is I think we'll see this tied some to games played, maybe team success, maybe a combination of the two. That's becoming more and more popular to do that with these. A couple other minor pieces of news around two-way contracts. The Washington Wizards claimed Joel Ayayi off waivers after the Lakers waived him, so he'll fill their two-way. He's kind of a former Laker. I guess we can give him that designation, even though he never appeared in a real game with the Lakers. But he joins a million other
former Lakers on the Wizards.
on the Wizards. Yeah, so good for him and his former Gonzaga teammate Corey Kispert as well. So they're there together. And then the Boston Celtics filled their open two-way spot with Broderick Thomas, who had been on a two-way with Cleveland last season. At the end of the year, he actually got some decent amount of playing time as Cleveland was kind of playing out the string, and we'll see what comes of that one. So a couple teams filling things out at the bottom of their rosters there with two ways. We still have a couple cuts that need to be made. Charlotte and San Antonio are still +1 on regular contracts. They'll do that by 5 p.m. Eastern today, and then the rest of the rookie scale extension 6 p.m. Eastern today is the deadline. Big one there, DeAndre Ayton. We're still waiting to see what's going to happen. There's some reporting out of Phoenix from the local folks. There's not going to be an extension done for DeAndre Ayton, and that gets a little scary to me if you're the Suns. I know this level is restricted rights and can match anything, but we've seen how that goes for teams sometimes. Then you get a guy on a shorter deal, and then the guy wants to bounce as soon as he can. So we'll see how that comes together.
And I don't think we've talked about this. I don't think that's the right move for the Suns, and I know there's no real risk of them losing him like in the immediate future, but you're just setting a bad precedent. When you paid to keep Chris Paul, you saved money on Chris Paul, by the way, on his deal, right? So you saved money there. You paid Bridges, and then you're telling Ayton, no, sorry, we're not going to pay you. Like that, just the optics of it looks bad. And if you're Ayton, the Suns are kind of telling you that, hey, we cared more about these guys than we did you. And maybe that's not the case, but that's the message that's going to wind up getting received there. And so it's just a bad look moving forward to not get this deal done for Ayton.
Agreed. Yeah. We get a little commotion here. The dogs are getting a little playful and fired up because they know we're about to do season predictions.
That's right.
So they're getting excited. They want to get in and check in there. So
Before we get to that, we do have
you ready to do
we
that?
do have just a little bit of news. Nothing major, nothing that we didn't know. But Mark Stein confirms that the Sacramento Kings will not be reaching an extension with Marvin Bagley either. Again, expected. We talked about it a little bit yesterday, but just more confirmation that that's the direction they're heading.
Yeah, absolutely. It's and then just on the injury front, there's a lot of stuff going on. We're getting a ton of these injury updates as we head into the start of the regular season. Official injury reports. We'll get one later today for tomorrow's game, so that's kind of fun. And then the other ones will come out on Tuesday. But no update on Jaylen Brown yet. If he'll play for the Celtics, sounds like Al Horford's probably going to be a no-go. We'll see what that looks like. And then Bradley Beal sounds like he is back to full go for the Wizards after banging his knee with Evan Fournier on Friday. So good news there on that front. So I think we're in a good place injury-wise. But let's do it, man. Let's do some season predictions. So what we're going to do here is we'll set the table for everybody. We're going to go through each conference and kind of lay it out 1 through 15 with some of our rationale behind where we picked teams. Then we'll kind of say our are probably just our conference finalists in each
Hmm.
conference, our NBA champion prediction, and then we're going to go through some of the major awards. We're not going to do all NBA teams and stuff like that because it just gets to be a little long and a little tricky there. Keep in mind as we do this, we're doing this with uh, what we expect to be reasonable amounts of health
Yes.
for teams.
Yeah.
We're not going to go in there projecting, some guy who's never been hurt is going to get injured and be out for the entire season. Like that's not it. But Zion Williamson is out, so for me at least, that factors into where I projected the
Hmm.
Pelicans to finish because at this point we don't know when he's going to be back, and that may be a while. So, and then if a team has a key guy with significant injury history, that you can expect to miss games, I kind of factored that in as well. But we're not going into this predicting major injuries for guys who've never been hurt before because it's just not how you do these kind of things. So, with that said, I'm going to give it to you. Do you want to start with the East or the West?
Let's start with the Eastern Conference. Let's
Oh,
let's go there
man, you
first.
threw me a
I'm
curveball. I thought you were going to go with the
I'm
West.
saving the best for last, Keith. Come on.
Oh, okay. All right. Sure. Yeah.
I could
Defending champs are
I
from
could
where?
feel that eye roll there. I could feel that.
you could, and when you watch the video back later, you'll probably
Yeah.
see it. All right. So the
Yeah.
East. How do you want to do? Kind of
I,
like I kind of think of it in
that's what I was going to
tiers.
say. Let's do tiers. I think that's the
Okay.
easiest way to do this. And I guess
Perfect.
let's just start at the top. I've got the Brooklyn Nets and the Milwaukee Bucks in a tier by themselves. Now, had the Kyrie stuff not gone down, I would have had the Nets in their own tier and then the Bucks. But I have the Bucks and the Nets in a tier at the top of the Eastern Conference by themselves based on what's happened with Kyrie. And now projecting forward, I'm expecting that the Nets will not have Kyrie for the entire season.
Yep. So we're on the same page there. I actually put the Bucks slightly ahead of
Uh-huh.
the Nets now. In that just because I think the Nets are now going to look at it and say, well, we don't have all
Yeah.
three, so we have to be uh, more cautious with the two guys we do have. So I have those same two teams. My next group is this is a pretty
Yes.
wide
I got that
tier
too.
for me. There's a lot of teams in here, and I'll give you the order I have them in. But just know I have them all within, a few
Hmm.
wins of each other. So Boston, Atlanta, Miami, Philadelphia, and New York. I have them all in that same tier together, grouped together in the East, all within a few wins. It's just kind of I think Boston has to be healthier this
Yeah.
year than they were last year. It was insane the amount of games that they missed. I think Atlanta's good. I think we've kind of collectively maybe forgotten about the Hawks a little bit and how good they were. I don't think Miami's going to push overly hard in the regular season. That's why I've got them behind those two. I just think they're built for the playoffs. They've got those vets who know it's more about being healthy come springtime than it is winning every possible game.
I
Breaking news:
saw.
Spurs are waiving veteran forward Alfred
I
Camino.
wonder.
Not really a
No, not a
surprise there. That
surprise.
was that was the one I
Does he get
expected
picked up anywhere, you
all
think?
along. I don't
Yeah.
think so. I don't know that he's healthy. I think he's might be done with the. I think just the knee injuries have taken too much of a
Right.
toll for him. Maybe some team looking for veteran forward help, brings him in. He's not what he was. He's not a guy who can switch out and defend on the perimeter the way he once
Right.
was.
And that's what
Back
teams
in the day,
need.
he's now more of a four. Yeah. All right, back to what we were talking about. Philly is just hard. They're
That's
impossible to
that's it.
peg because we don't know. I could see them being third. I could see them being in the play-in. I just don't know where. And then the Knicks, I like the Knicks. I like what they
Hmm.
did in the offseason. I just have them. I think they were a little bit over their heads last year, and the guys they added, I don't think offset some of the regression we'll have fully. So I think they just slide back slightly
Agreed.
in the
I also
conference.
have the Knicks at the bottom of that grouping. I have the same teams. I have a slightly different order though. I've got Miami and then Atlanta, then Boston, and then I've got the Knicks. But again, like you said, they're all so close that you could tell me any order and I would say yes, that's
Yeah,
possible, right? I mean, that's where that's at. I just buy in a lot to the Kyle Lowry effect with the Miami Heat, and I also like what we've seen in the preseason from Tyler Hero. If he takes a step forward, I think that can give them a nice boost as well. And of course, Bam Adebayo is just an absolute force. So I'm high on the Miami Heat heading into the season. I agree that I think the Knicks do slide a little bit. I think they were a bit above their head last year. The Hawks, tremendous. Glad that they locked up John Collins. I think that kind of takes away a little bit of that distraction. So I wonder if
yeah,
that helps to propel them forward a bit. And then Boston, like you said, they look. you've got so many quality players there. They've got pieces that fit well. If Jaylen Brown is healthy, if Jason Tatum is healthy, and if they can avoid COVID protocols for this season, I think they will indeed be better. And I think they're going to remind people that they are a better team than what we saw last year. I think that will be kind of the blip on the radar, and everything else will fall in line with what we know about this team.
Yeah, I completely agree. So let's see what that one thing with the Heat that for me has me slightly
Uh-huh.
lower on them is I think their depth is really not all that great. Like Tyler
True.
Hero is a good six man. He could maybe even win six man of the year. But after him, the other guys, I think they're fine in a playoff series where you're counting on maybe eight guys total, and the
Mhm.
seventh and eighth guys play 10 minutes apiece. In the regular season, when they need to spot guys' days, Jimmy Butler, Kyle Lowry, PJ Tucker, I'm not sure I love the guys who are going to have to come in and then play 30 minutes in the regular season. And that's why I think Miami might be one of those weird teams where you're looking at it. It's like, how did Miami lose to Orlando by 15 on a
Right.
random Tuesday in January? And then you look at the box score and it's like, oh, Butler, Lowry, and Tucker didn't play, and that's why I think they're just going to throw some games away with the bigger picture in
That's fair.
mind.
And I think
That's the
they're
only
a
reason.
team
Yeah,
that they will do a poorer job withstanding any kind of an injury than some of the other teams that
yeah,
are in this grouping.
yeah, yeah. Their depth just
Yeah.
isn't there. All right, the next tier. So these guys. So one of those teams, one of the teams that I think we both agree are going to be pretty good. It's going to be in the
Yep.
play-in because
Somebody.
somebody's going to be seventh. So then I think the other teams in the play-in mix are Charlotte, Chicago, Indiana, and Washington, and that's the order I have them in. I'm not sold on this Bulls team at all. I just think the fit is
Hmm.
weird with some of these pieces. I need to see it before I'll buy in. I'm perfectly willing and ready to eat crow on that. I just don't know how all those pieces are going to come together. And I have some worries about their defense too. I don't know that they're going to put together, a very good defense. So a little bit worried there. Charlotte, I'm higher
Hmm.
on, I think, than probably most because I think I just think they're going to be really, really good offensively. And as long as their defense isn't horrible, I think they have a chance to be pretty good. Now, I should have caveated this with I have both of those teams right around 500. And then the teams behind them, I have a pretty good drop off. One will get into the play-in mix. Indiana, they're already hurt. Karis LeVert and TJ
Yeah.
Warren are already out.
That's
That's
an issue.
concerning. I'm worried about some of their fits with the way guys still don't love the Turner Sabonis pairing as a grouping there. And then Washington, let's see. It's just so many new
Yeah.
guys. I just wrote for an article that'll come out later today. There's a lot of positional overlap in Washington. That's weird. They have a lot of guys who are play the same positions. I think that could turn into hey, I need minutes because there's guys that are trying to get paid and establish themselves. I just think that has the potential to be really
Yeah.
messy.
Yeah, it absolutely does. I agree. My grouping for this next tier, if we want to call this tier three or whatever in the Eastern Conference, it's similar. I'm actually higher on Chicago, so I've got them at the top of this tier. What
Okay.
we've seen so far in preseason has at least given me some hope that because I agree, I think that those concerns are real. But what we've seen in preseason so far is that this team's going to get out and run, and they're going to be good enough offensively to where maybe that mitigates some of those defensive concerns. So I have them. I'm optimistic about them. Maybe it's just because Alex Caruso is wearing a Bulls jersey now that I've got them so high. But I have them at the top of this
Could be.
tier. Then I've got Charlotte. Now here's the thing though, I've got the Toronto Raptors in this mix. I'm buying into the idea that them actually having a home court is going to remind everybody that this is still a strong team, even if some of the pieces on the floor aren't as good. I think they will be a greater than the sum of their parts team this year. So I have them in this grouping as well.
Let me jump in on
Yeah.
Toronto because it's this is going to sound very weird because I don't have them in this mix. They're either going to be better than that and they're going to be pushing 6 or 7 in the East, or they're going to be bad and they're going to be like, all right, this let's bottom this out. Let's
Hmm.
hold guys out. Let's position for ping pong balls by the trade deadline and the thing. Yeah, I don't think Masai Ujiri's not a fence sitter. I don't think he's going to push to chase for the 10th seed and just getting into the play in. I don't think that's what they
Yeah.
want. I think it's going to have to be, hey, we have a legit shot at it being a real playoff team, or we're just going to sit this thing out and we'll hang out there. So that's where Toronto is. I think they have the most variance of any team in
True.
the NBA to me. I could see them having a winning record, pushing a sixth seed in an assured playoff spot. I could also see them being one of the four worst teams in the Eastern Conference, just because I think they could bottom it out. And I don't see a lot in between. So it's funny if you ask me to project a like real prediction, I would put them right in the middle of this pack, but I just don't think that's realistic. So I slid them
Okay,
down.
that's fair. I think that I'm buying into the home court thing being a problem last season, and that we're going to see them be at least a solid group this time around. So again, I've got the
They're going to defend. Too,
yes, yeah, exactly, and
like
I
crazy.
think
They're going to be really
I
good.
think with Indiana already suffering these injuries, I had to bump them down. So
It's
they're
fair.
down near the bottom of this list for me. But I've got so again, I go Chicago, Charlotte, then I've got I put Washington just ahead of Toronto. I think some of those new pieces in there will help out, and Bradley Beal's just really really good. So Washington, then Toronto, and then I've got Indiana at the bottom of the grouping. I think if they were healthy, they would be much higher. You might even be able to make an argument that they could jump up into the next tier as far as their ceiling, but they're
Hmm.
just not healthy. And so it's hard to project that heading
Yeah.
into the season.
Yeah. And when you start behind the eight ball, it can be hard then to make up the ground if
Exactly.
you fall out. All right.
Bottom.
Bottom of the conference. So we have the same three
Mm-hmm.
teams at the bottom of the conference. My order is Cleveland, Detroit, and
Yep.
Orlando. I think Cleveland is going to, I again, for an article that'll come out later, I think Cleveland's bad, but they're like regular bad now versus being awful. I just, they
There's
have too much
tiers of
talent
bad.
to be truly, yeah, they have too much talent to be that
Mm-hmm.
bad, and they're not trying to be bad either, and that makes a big difference too, right? They're trying really hard to win, so that makes a huge difference compared to teams that are not trying overly hard to win, and that to me is Detroit and Orlando. I like the talent on both the Pistons and the Magic. It's just very young. I think they are very much in the let's try a whole bunch of
Mm-hmm.
stuff mode, and that's great long term. It's just going to result in a bunch of losses and probably some ugly losses at times. Two, I worry a little bit about the shooting in Detroit. I worry about Orlando's shot creation, and if you struggle to find offense, your those teams aren't going to be so good defensively that they're going to offset it that much. So that's why I've got them at the bottom of the conference. But I'm not picking on them. It's not a bad thing. It's by design. I think that's where they want to be. And let's see, in a couple years, being at the bottom this year may have paid off in a major way for both of those
Yeah.
teams.
Yeah, I've got the exact same ranking. I go Cleveland, Detroit, Orlando. Again, like you said, Cleveland. The difference is Cleveland's trying to win. That's a big thing, right? When you organizationally are actually
Yep.
trying to win versus the other two teams are very clearly rebuilding. I think that's going to matter for at least a handful of wins over the course of the season, and we'll bump them up above those two. But that's exactly how I have the East playing out for the same reasons.
All right. Let's switch to the
Let's do it.
West. I'll go first on the
Okay.
West. I have Utah at the
Hmm.
top of the conference in the regular season. I just think they have built a regular season winning
They have.
machine. I also think they could, I said it the other day here on the show, they could win 75 or 80 games. And everybody like, that's cute. Show me in the playoffs.
Right.
It almost doesn't matter
Hmm.
anymore, how many games this team wins. But I do think in the regular season that they're going to be at the top of the conference. And I think part of that is also the teams behind them are either injured already with key players, or the Lakers and the Suns tend to have some key older players that they're just I don't think they're going to push too hard to try and catch the Jazz. And I think the Jazz have one of the true home court advantages in the
Hmm.
league, where it really is a real advantage for them. I think that'll push them up. And I think if the Lakers and Suns, if we're, let's say, mid-January or a month or so out from the trade deadline, and you look up and you're 4 or 5 games behind, I think they're going to be like, all right, we're not going
Yeah.
to kill ourselves trying to catch them and run them down. Let's just, we'll play this thing out and go. So, and again, reminder, this is regular season. We'll get into the playoffs in a minute, because that's where it changes for me in a pretty big
Yes.
way. So Utah at the top. Then I have the Lakers and the Suns in the next grouping, right behind them. So that's my top three, and then that's kind of where my break is in the West.
Okay, so for me, I've got a similar ranking. I actually have the Lakers third, and I've got Utah and the Suns ahead of them. And I know that maybe that sounds weird, given that I'm the Lakers guy and everything like that. But I think that the losses, particularly of Trevor Ariza and Taylor Horton Tucker, already moving into the season for a team that was already a little bit light in terms of wing depth, of having that size out there on the wings, I think it's going to be a fairly big deal. I mean, we were projecting Ariza to be a guy that, at the very least, if he didn't start, would probably finish games for them because of that defensive versatility.
Sure.
So that actually hurts. So I knocked them down a little bit. And again, like you said, I don't expect the Lakers to be pushing down on the gas pedal much during the regular season. They're going to try to get into the playoffs healthy. And so that's where I have them 3 heading into or throughout the regular season. Phoenix, I think the continuity matters, especially in the early going, and they have pretty much the same team from last year. We saw it in preseason, how much they're already on the same page because they have that same group that can get off and run. Maybe the quick-ish turnaround could be a little bit of a factor with them, and I agree that's why you do put the Utah Jazz in that 1 seed. But like you said, the question for them is always playoffs. They have this narrative around them, and it's justified at this point, of being the team that's great in the regular season, and then come playoff time, when coaches can lock in on exactly what they do, they can shut down a lot of their sets, whereas on a random Wednesday in February or whatever, you're not preparing specifically for the Utah Jazz, and so they have a little bit more success there.
Exactly.
So I've got to rank that way. I've got Utah, Phoenix, then the Lakers as the top tier in the Western Conference for the time being, and then everybody else, there's a break after that.
Now, everybody remember that was not me. That was Trevor that's down on the Lakers. It says they're barely going to make it out of the play-in tournament, and that's it. But no, yeah, I can see that too. I can see Phoenix moving past them. My thing is, I think the Lakers, because you have LeBron, Russ, and AD, that's going to, as I've over and over said, I sound like a broken record. You're probably always going to have one of the 3, and that'll drive wins over. You can get by in Orlando, a Detroit, and OKC, a Houston, if you're only playing one of the 3. Because we've seen all 3 of those guys win games basically by themselves. So it's, I think that's going to drive wins more so than, all right, if we're down, a guy and we only have 2 guys, then that gets a little trickier there. All right, my next group is, again, pretty tight. It's 3 teams: Denver, Dallas, and Golden State. For me, I'm giving Denver the nod slightly over the other 2, just because I believe in the Nuggets in a pretty big way. I think not having Jamal Murray hurts, but I think they are positioned to do well without him, because we saw what Michael Porter Jr. did after Murray went down. I think that's real. I think he's going to be a scoring machine this year. Jokic is Jokic. He was the MVP last year for a reason. And I think Aaron Gordon there for a full year is going to help. Will Barton being in better health, rather. And I think they've got pretty good point guard depth even without Murray. So I think Denver's just ahead. Dallas, this is a Luka play with a slight mix of, I'm kind of buying into Kristaps Porzingis at my own risk here. I probably shouldn't, but I'm kind of in. I feel like he looks different in the preseason. Just looks like a different guy. And then the Warriors, I think they have one more pretty good run in them. I think Steph is that good. I think they're going to get Clay back. Jordan Poole, we've talked about how much, that's my guy this year. I'm all about Jordan Poole. I think Draymond's got one more year. They're not going to mess around with the kids like they were last season too much. They're going to be in bench roles. So I think the Warriors have one more run.
So for me, I've got the same 3 teams, and I've gone back and forth on the order with each team in each spot so many times because you can make so many different arguments for each of them. So it would not shock me if there was any particular finish with these 3 teams. I'm going to put Dallas in the top spot in this tier for now, just because it relates to one of my other awards later on and nothing else. This isn't really me saying they're clearly the best team. They're not. This is such a muddy group for me, but I'm going to go Dallas and then Denver and then Golden State. Dallas, a lot of that is just attributed to Luka's brilliance. I think Reggie Bullock's floor spacing will matter for them, and a healthier Kristaps Porzingis, I think, will matter as well. So I've got them up there pretty high. And then I'm looking at the Denver Nuggets. Like you said, I think Michael Porter Jr., I'm a believer. I think that he's really got something there. Jamal Murray coming back, hopefully midway through the season. That will give them a little bit of boost too to help carry them. And then, of course, when we talk Golden State, I think, look, Golden State, if we didn't know what we know right now about Jordan Poole, if we hadn't seen him perform the way he did in the preseason, we might be talking about them in a lower tier because Clay's not coming back till December, maybe January, and who knows what he's going to look like. It's been a long time since he's played NBA basketball. There's a lot of question marks there, but I think Jordan Poole is a ceiling raiser. He's the reason why I've bumped them up into this tier because I think he allows them to sustain themselves without Clay for a bit.
Yeah, I completely agree. I also think the Warriors are going to be that team when we get to the postseason that it's going to be, oh man, nobody wants to play those guys. Like that, that's tough. No one's going to want to get with the Warriors. All right, my next group is a group of two. Portland and the Clippers, and they'll be the top two teams in the play-in for me. I think Portland, it's Dame. I can't take them out of the mix there. And then the Clippers, they've got enough to still get by without Kawhi Leonard. I'm basically pricing in Kawhi's either not going to play or he's going to join the Clippers so late that I don't think it'll matter. But yeah, those are my two teams, and I've got them in the different, even though they're in the play-in and anything can happen in a single elimination. I've got them a few wins clear of the next teams behind them. So that's where I put those two.
I've actually got three teams in this tier. I've got Portland and the Clippers as well, but I also have the Memphis Grizzlies. I just think a healthy Jaren Jackson Jr.
I was tough on them.
will propel them forward. And I'm a big believer in Ja Morant. I think he's going to be fantastic this season. So I've got those three teams in there and in that order: Portland, Clippers, Grizzlies in that tier for me.
I just didn't love Memphis's offseason.
Sure.
I don't like the Steven Adams addition. I think Valanciunas was better for them. I think I get it long term why they did that. I fully understand that. I like the Jaren Jackson Jr. signing clearly. Yeah, we'll see. I'm a little bit worried Dylan Brooks out at the beginning of the year. He gives them so much that I don't think, unless you're really watching that team regularly, people fully realize. So, but yeah, that's I'm not gonna argue it too much because they're at the top of my next group. I actually have them and the Sacramento Kings as my other two teams in the 9-10, and then I have a pretty big break. So I have the Kings making that push to the play-in. Not the playoffs, but the play-in, and right there with the Grizzlies in that 9-10. And then we're not going to go through a full playoff predictions, but just because it feels like it's the way it would go, I have the Kings winning that game in Memphis and then going and losing the game in probably heartbreaking fashion that would finally snap the playoff drought there. But I don't know, call me crazy, but I feel like this Kings team's ready to take a real actual step forward and push towards being a playoff
No,
team.
I agree with you. I actually have the Kings in that next group as well, but obviously I've got a different team joining them in that group, and I've got the Pelicans joining the Kings in that grouping there. But I do think the Kings are the superior team right now. I'm going to buy into the hashtag 15 pounds of muscle on so I'm gonna go with them right there. And that's, look, the Kings I think are going to be an actually decent team to watch on any given night right now. Again, De'Aaron Fox is bulked up, so I think that he's a guy that is going to really make a name for himself this season, and if the Kings can improve, then they're going to get that much more attention. And I also like that they've now committed to Buddy Hield coming off the bench. It feels like that's kind of water under the bridge. Maybe they trade him at some point, but for right now, that's where I've got them. And then I've got the Pelicans in there. Look, Zion is good enough to where if he's able to come back healthy, and I know this is a big question mark, but if he's able to come back healthy, they may actually vault over the Kings just because he's that good. But those question marks around health, I can't put them any higher right now.
So it's interesting that's probably our biggest disagreement because I have New Orleans at the bottom of my next group, which is San Antonio, Minnesota, and New Orleans. I actually have, though that's my 11 through 13 in the West, and I have New Orleans at the bottom. And my reasoning there is, kind of talk these guys in reverse order then, is when's Zion going to play? We don't know. Like now we're here in 2 weeks before we even get another update. Then what are they going to do? Clearly he's the franchise, so you're not going to push him back. If he was healthy to start the year, I would have had them maybe as high as 8th. in the conference. I think he is that big of a difference-making player. I don't love their depth because it feels like it's a lot of kids you're relying on when you're relying on young guys for your depth. I just worry a little bit. Valanciunas will help because he's at least another guy you can run some offense through on the block. Brandon Ingram, though, he's already nicked up in the preseason. I'm a little worried about that. Devontae Graham feels like if Zion's out, he's going to have to really step up. I think New Orleans is the team. This happens every year with the team. They kind of fall behind early, and then it just never comes together for them. And that's what I see happening with them. Minnesota, I have ahead of them. I think again they're kind of like the Cleveland of the West. Like they're not trying to be bad. They're really trying to win and trying to be a good team. And maybe it all comes together for them. I just don't see them defending enough on a night to night basis to get wins. And then the Spurs, they're the Spurs. I know so many people have them bottoming out and being near the bottom of the conference. I just think they have better players than the average person realizes. They're clearly gonna be very well coached, and they're gonna play hard every night, and that's gonna get you a bunch of wins. I just think the Kings are ready to make that step forward, and then the rest of the teams in the West are just far enough ahead of San Antonio. But it wouldn't surprise me at all if the play-in tournament rolls around and the Spurs are somehow in the mix once again.
I mean, they seem to do that, right? They were always that team that every single year people were saying, this is the year they're finally going to look their age and they're going to drop off. And the next thing you know, they were winning 55 games yet again. And they never go away, the zombie Spurs. But I'm with you on that. Like I can see the argument why the Pelicans would be lower on this list. If Brandon Ingram's issues, if those start to become a big thing, then they drop real fast, right? They're going to be very reliant on him, particularly while Zion is out. I look at the Minnesota Timberwolves. I have them slightly ahead of the Spurs. I think they're going to be a solid team. I think that they've got potential, but I think that you mentioned the Pelicans are a team that could get off to a slow start and it could spiral. The same thing could happen to the Minnesota Timberwolves. I think if they don't come out of the gate strong, if they're not looking good, and there's some excitement there, right? Anthony Edwards, very, very good player, obviously. But if they lose, let's say they go 3-7 in their first 10 games or something like that, you could see a very quick downward spiral where that kind of mentality of, oh no, not again, takes over. And so that could go south pretty fast too with the Wolves.
And that becomes almost one of those two, exact you said, you start to see it's like, here we go again. It's the same old. Yeah. All right. Bottom of the conference, then we've got the same two teams, Houston and Oklahoma City. For what it's worth, I have Oklahoma City as the worst team in the NBA. I don't, they're just going to be bad. And again, by design, same thing with the Rockets. I think the Rockets will be a little bit better because they've got some decent veterans that can slide in and play minutes. But I think what happens with them is those guys are gone shortly after the holidays. Then that team fully focuses. You don't draft 4 guys in the first round and assume to be very good, unless you're not going to play those 4 guys, and they're going to play. I think all 4 of them are going to see a decent chunk of time. But what's funny is I'm interested in this Rockets team quite a bit, and I watch them a lot because I like a lot of their guys. Same thing with the Thunder. It's funny. Detroit, Orlando, Houston, and OKC are going to be terrible, but I'm going to probably watch a decent chunk of all 4 of those teams. And those are the 4 teams I have in the bottom that'll have the same weighted lottery odds as we talk about. And that's why, too, I have Oklahoma City with the least amount of wins in the league. I projected them to go 20-62 because there's no real reason once you're we're bad, we're going to be at the bottom. There's no reason to completely bottom out and only win 15 games like there used to be because it's weighted with those top 4 teams.
So I agree. I've got OKC all the way at the bottom. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, I think, is going to do things for them, but they've got. And that might keep them competitive in a few games, but let's face it, organizationally, they're trying to lose, right? So I think that's going to matter, just like we talked about it mattering with the Cavs in the Eastern Conference. The Houston Rockets, I agree, they've got some players, I think, that can help them win. Guys like Christian Wood, I've been high on Christian Wood for a while. Jalen Green is going to get most of the attention, and rightfully so. He is a don't take your eye off the game type of player because any minute he could do something amazing. We saw it during Summer League. Some of his step backs that he was hitting were fantastic. But Alperen Sengun, this is a guy that I just enjoy watching his game because you can see flashes of what he can be. Maybe not this year, but soon, right? Like he's got something there, and I'm curious to see how the Rockets really work that out with Christian Wood. Kenyon Martin Jr. is another guy that's pretty dynamic that I like to keep an eye on. So it's weird to say, but I'm actually kind of excited to watch the Rockets this season.
Yeah, I'm with you. And let's not forget they signed Daniel Tice
True.
too. So he's clearly going to be a part of things, at least initially in that
Mhm.
rotation. And then, yeah, and then I think why they'll win games kind of early on in the year too is you get guys like Eric
Yes.
Gordon, DJ Augustine, who are there. That they've been around and done some stuff. But I think the goal will be shortly after the holidays. See you later, veteran guys. You're either on the bench with John Wall not playing, or or you're not
Yeah.
here. We've moved you on for other things. So all right, playoffs. We said we're not going to go through the full
Mhm.
playoff picture, but we're going to give you our conference finalists in each conference and go from there. So we'll go back to the East. I'm going chalk, Milwaukee and
Okay.
Brooklyn in the East, and I'm picking Brooklyn to make it out of the East this time
Yep.
around.
Same for me. You could now and we talked about this a little bit with the Eastern Conference. The big question mark is what happens with Ben Simmons in Philly. Is he playing? Is he not? And then does he get traded, and what do they get in return? If they got a big return, let's say the seas part, the clouds clear, right? Whatever happens, and Ben Simmons somehow gets swapped out for Dame Lillard, you get a good piece for him. The 76ers could put themselves in
Oh
that
yeah,
race, right? They could be there. But
yeah,
based
definitely.
on as things sit right now, if Simmons is playing for the 76ers or if he's out, either way, right? If there's not a trade that lands them a real piece, I've got the same thing. Bucks, Nets. I'm going Nets. I thought the Nets were the better team last season, and it was injuries that caused the Bucks to advance. Not that the Bucks are a bad team, but I thought the Nets were the better team last season, and they were felled by injuries. So I've got the Nets advancing to the NBA Finals as well.
I also, to some extent, I'm going to own that in the back of my head, there's something rattling around that at some point Kyrie Irving rejoins
Mm,
this team, and then that takes them from being, the favorites to the overwhelming
right.
favorites, and I loved their offseason. I thought they added all sorts of guys who were really good fits with this team. I think I just think even on when they don't have Durant or Harden, they're still going to be pretty solid. All right, let's go to the West. You go first in the West.
Yeah, so in the West, you've got a number of teams that could make a real run there, but I'm actually going to say that with a healthy Jamal Murray, it's Denver and the Lakers in the Western Conference.
I thought I was gonna pull a shocker
No,
on you
really?
and go with
You had Denver
Denver.
too?
Yeah, I have the Lakers in Denver. I was so excited to be like, I'm gonna throw you the curveball, and I'm picking Denver. Oh man,
Oh, sorry to spoil the fun there,
my
but
bad.
yeah, I've got Denver in the league. And again, nothing against the Suns, nothing against the Jazz. I think that injuries were a big factor there, and if the Lakers and Nuggets are healthy, I see them as the highest ceiling teams in the Western Conference. So I'm going to say those two teams get there, and I can't not pick the Lakers to get through in the finals.
Yeah, and I'm not pandering to my buddy in the audience here. I'm also picking the Lakers to beat the Nuggets in the conference finals. I just think the Nuggets, they're gonna get Jamal Murray back, and let's call it
Mm-hmm.
March-ish is what it sounds like. That's a month of tune-up time for him to get
Yep.
ready. And then I think they hit the playoffs looking like a unbelievable team. And I think they are just it's so rough for the Jazz because they went through all those years with
Yep.
Houston and with the Warriors, where it's like they're just a bad matchup. That's what it comes down to. And let's remember those two teams in the bubble played that unreal playoff series where it was shot after
Yep.
shot, and then Mike Conley throws in one from about 45 feet that rimmed out.
Oh,
That would have won the series for
the
the
Jazz. Yeah.
Jazz. So yeah, it's man, I thought I was gonna throw one at you there and
I
come
can't
away
believe it.
with it. But yeah,
I thought I
and I
was going to
just
surprise you. I thought for sure you were going to go like Phoenix and the Lakers or something like that. But okay, we're on the same page, Keith.
all right. Let's go to this one because I think we're probably going to be on opposite sides of this. I am picking the Brooklyn Nets to win the NBA title over the Lakers. I think it's just Durant, Harden, and then the overall depth. I think too, I worry the Lakers being just so reliant on older players by the time you get that deep into to well, what do those guys have left? At that point. But I think that is the NBA Finals. I would imagine most casual fans
Hmm.
want to just the star power on both sides. It's not the Knicks, but it's New York versus LA, East versus West. Like that becomes the fun series that I think everybody's was hoping for last
Hmm.
year and we didn't get.
Isn't it a surprise that we landed on Nets versus Lakers. Like nobody else is predicting that, right? That's a
No, yeah, right. Stunning.
amazing.
Yeah.
But no, I'm actually, and as strange as this sounds, I'm actually going to agree with you. I would have Nets as well, and it's for this reason. And I've been
Oh
saying this. I've been
man.
saying it all off season. Okay, this is not anti-Lakers. I think the Lakers ceiling is very, very high, but we've seen it from the Nets. We've seen what their ceiling is, and we've seen them hit that. And you can argue their ceiling's even higher, but I keep going back to last season. I think in the playoffs, when they had at least two of their stars healthy, they played at a level that was higher than anybody else we saw. Anybody. And
Yeah.
so, because we've seen that, I'm going to give them the nod until we see the Lakers hit that level. And again, this is a brand new team. They only have 3 players returning from last season, so we haven't seen it yet. So we don't know. There's a lot of possibilities out there where maybe they hit their ceiling, maybe they don't. We don't know exactly what that's going to look like. And so I think there's a little bit more confidence that the Nets are able to get to that level at this point. So that's why I'm going with them. But of course, my heart would love to see the Lakers win it. I'm just saying for right now, analytically, I would favor the Nets to win the whole thing over the Lakers if I had to, put money on it or something like that.
And I think that's just making the most
Yeah.
reasonable pick too. I feel like that is just the most reasonable pick there. I mean, they're clearly very, very good. I also let's just we'll own this. We would like it to be Celtics
Yes.
Lakers and break that
That would be
tie
fun.
whenever that opportunity comes. That's I think what we're definitely hoping for at some point there. But yeah, it's all right. So man, we were remarkably similar to no one's surprise here that listens to the show. All right, let's do some individual
Yeah.
awards real quick here. My MVP, I've gone back and forth with a bunch of different guys. I thought about Kevin
Uh-huh.
Durant. I thought about Giannis. I thought about Luca. I thought about Joel Embiid because maybe he, rises above this Simmons stuff. I even thought, hey, there's something that says maybe LeBron's got one more run in him. I don't think he's going to play that many
Yeah.
games to be enough. I am going to go with Kevin Durant because I think he's got one more MVP run in him, and I feel like this is just kind of his year because I think the Bucks are they coming off the title. I think they're going to
Mm-hmm.
prioritize things slightly different, and I think Durant without Kyrie early, we know how important it is to build that early narrative
Yeah.
too with this, but I do think he'll be deserving, and I do think he'll win.
I think that Durant definitely has the narrative, the narrative momentum going right now, right? I mean, we just saw him, right? Saw
Yeah.
him in the Olympics where he was the guy on a team full of stars. He was the guy everybody deferred to. That matters. The Nets are going to be very good. Obviously, that matters. But I actually have Luka as my MVP this season. That's why I had the Mavs in fourth because I think they have to finish pretty high in the West. If they are like the 6, 7 seed, he's not getting it. But I do think that Luka has the talent to get there. His team is so reliant upon him. And the one negative for Durant, Kyrie being out maybe changes this dynamic a little bit. But the negative is you can say, well, look at all the help that he's got. Look at the team that he's got around him. Sometimes that does matter. Whereas Luka, look, the Mavs will go as Luka goes. And if the Mavs finish as one of, say, the top 4 seeds in the Western Conference, I think Luka gets it.
Yeah, I think that's completely fair, and I think it's coming. If it's not
Yes.
this year, it's coming soon. He's, and then Luke is going to run off a string of top 5 MVP finishes that is probably going to maybe rival like what LeBron did, just for being up there year after year after year because he's just so young and so good already. No, I'm not saying he's as good as LeBron James historically. Let's not get stupid. It's just when you're that young and you're there already, you're gonna run those off. All right, rookie of the year. I'm going with Jalen Suggs. Maybe this is I want some love for the team here in Orlando. I just think he's going to have a ton of opportunity. Rookie of the
Mm-hmm.
year is often about
Yes.
stats more than
Mm-hmm.
anything else. And I think he compared to all the other rookies, he's got more of a clear runway to put up a bunch of counting stats, a bunch of points, assists, rebounds. His defensive numbers, I think, will be there too. Cade Cunningham has to share the limelight some in Detroit because they've got Jeremy Grant. They've got some other guys. In Houston, Jalen Green's probably going to do some stuff, but they've got Kevin Porter Jr.
Yeah.
and Christian Wood and guys who are going to get numbers. So I think Jalen Green just comes out, get numbers right away. And I think that's why he's going to win.
Jalen Green or Jalen Suggs? You have Suggs, right?
Jalen
Okay.
Suggs, sorry. Yeah, I meant Suggs. Yeah, man,
I
that's
I
going to
knew
be a
what you meant.
thing for the
I knew what
next
you meant.
decade and a
I've got
half.
the other Jalen. I've got Jalen Green,
All
and I'm
right.
going to say it's because of what we've been talking about, right? The Orlando Magic, we're projecting them to be the bottom of the Eastern Conference. I don't think they're going to get enough eyeballs. Where I think there's enough happening in Houston. There's going to be enough highlight reel plays. There's going to be enough games where they're close in it because they've got those guys, like you mentioned, Kevin Porter Jr., Kenyon Martin Jr., you've got Christian Wood, right? You've got enough guys to where they'll be in some close games. And I think the eyeballs falling on Jalen Green will matter in the voters' minds because I think he's going to put up numbers as well. And he's going to have a chance to do that from day one. So interesting that neither of us went with the number one overall pick, Cade Cunningham. Maybe we're just trying to be contrarians enough. I mean, is that just too obvious of a pick to go Cade Cunningham? Oh,
I'm getting a
getting a
surprise visitor
surprise.
here. Sorry. No, I think I think the Cade Cunningham situation becomes a he's very
Mhm.
good, and I think he's going to be very good. For me, it's just I don't think there's too many other guys there in Detroit for him
Yeah.
to step it up that way. So I
That's
think
fair.
that's where it becomes kind of the issue.
Okay. Uh,
One thing,
yeah.
it's weird to call him a dark horse because he was the fourth pick. But
Oh,
if
Scotty
Toronto
Barnes.
ends up being good, like we both
Yep.
think they could, I think Scotty Barnes will be in the mix because he's going to be. If that team's good, he's going to be a big reason
Yep.
why. Um,
Very versatile.
we don't have to get super deep into the conversation, but because of that ability to be really good, I think OG Anunoby's going to win Most Improved.
Oh, good
I
one.
think OG Anunoby's gonna knock on the door being an All Star this year, especially with Pascal Siakam out to start the year and those kind of things. I think he's going to be excellent this season.
I've got your guy. I've got Jordan Poole. I think what we saw from him and what we saw from him in preseason so far says it's for real. And I think that what we've got in terms
Uh,
of the Warriors, if they are finding themselves up in that next tier, like I said, I think he's a ceiling raiser. If the Warriors are up in that next tier, a lot of that's going to be credit. Of course, Steph will get plenty of credit, but he will be the guy that helps bump them
sure.
up. And so that's why I've got him as most improved.
Yeah, I would pick Jordan Poole to maybe win sixth man too. I'm just afraid he's going to start too many
That's why I
games
don't have him as
to end
six
up
man.
actually being
Yep.
eligible. Yeah, so let's go to sixth man of the year. Call it a homer pick, but I'm going to pick Dennis Schroeder. I think he's
Lakers
fits
fans will
well in
love you
Boston.
for that pick.
I'm sure. But I think he's in the role he should play. I don't think Dennis Schroeder should be a starting point guard in the NBA. I think he should be a six man anchor second unit, give him the ball, let him do his thing as a scorer, run a bunch of stuff. And I don't think he should be on the floor at any games at the end of any games ever. I just think, it's in the regular season. I think he's a guy who can just pile up
Mhm.
stats. And I think he's motivated with the Celtics to prove, hey, I'm not, a $5 million a year player like I am right now. I should pile up stats and win this
Now, I
award.
mean, he came in second in six man of the year season before last. And so I think that's
Yep.
a good pick as much as people like to make fun of Dennis Schroeder. The reality is that if he's your backup point guard, you're in pretty good shape, right? Like he is a good
Yeah.
backup. He can come in, he can do some things. The big question mark for him is the 3-point percentage. What's that going to look like? Is it going to look like his OKC season when he was 38% from deep, or is it going to be
Yeah. Something in that
32,
range,
thirty-three
probably.
percent So that's a big question with
Yep.
Schroeder. I went with Buddy Hield. I think that historically you got to go all the way. You have to go 10 years back to find a six man of the year that came in that was not a score first guy that didn't put points on the board. Right? You got to go all the way back to Lamar Odom 10 years ago to find a six man of the
Yep.
year who was not their main contribution was not scoring, right? So I think going with a scorer makes a lot of sense. And for me, Buddy Hield coming off the bench, I'm expecting Sacramento to be better this season. I think he's going to put up points. He's going to shoot a ton of threes. Tyrese Halliburton's going to be in front of him in that rotation. But I think talent-wise, he's starter quality. And given the fact that he can get buckets, I think that combination for me gets him six man.
I like it. Yeah, I think that's a really solid one. My outside, uh, maybe not super outside, Tyler Hero,
Yes,
I think has a real
great pick.
chance to win it for Miami because I think he's going to have a really good year. I think it's a big bounce back year coming from him. Defensive player of the year, I'll keep this one very simple. I went with Rudy
Okay.
Gobert. Until anybody does what he does in the regular season better than he does it, It's just going to be him. Giannis could maybe do it. AD could maybe do it. I just think those guys. I don't see either one of them killing themselves defensively night to night in the regular season. They know I got to save something for the postseason.
Defensively, this is going to be my one homer pick. I'm going Anthony Davis. I thought he was tremendous 2 seasons ago when he was healthy. He was second,
Yep,
came in second behind Giannis. And this season, the Lakers defense is going to ask him to do probably even more because they don't have that many defense first guys.
that is
He's
true.
going to have to fly all over the place on the defensive end. And if the Lakers can somehow pull off a, say, top 10 ranked defense with the group they've got right now, I think that will be a feather in the cap of Anthony Davis as well as Frank Vogel. So I'm going Anthony Davis as my defensive player of the year.
I think that's solid reasoning. I think he'll be
Yeah.
right there with that. And then last one we'll finish with is coach
Yes.
of the year. Again, I'm gonna go with me. It's probably a homer pick, but a lot of times this is a new coach
Mm-hmm.
and a coach that improves the team. And I'm gonna go with Ime Udoka just because I think the Celtics are gonna be that much better. And I think a lot of that is gonna fall to, well, Jaylen Brown's still there, Jason Tatum's still there. They've still got Marcus Smart, and the veterans are okay. And I think it's just going to come down to how is this team that much better? And I think people are going to look for, oh yeah, Ime, had a big hand in that. And I think that's what they're gonna go with kind of as the story there. So I'm going to pick him, but I'll say it was hard to not pick Quinn
Mm-hmm.
Snyder. Just because again, I think that team's gonna continue to pile up regular season wins.
I think the Coach of the Year award is not really the Coach of the Year award. It's the team that exceeds expectations award, right? That's
Yes,
that's
100%.
that's really what this is. And so because of that, I'm going with Ty Lue. I'm looking at a team that everybody is
Okay.
counting out, that everybody's saying is not going to be very good. And if they are good, let's say the Clippers finish 5 in the West, something like that, right? They're able to sustain themselves without Kawhi, and everybody's been saying maybe this isn't even a playoff team this season, or they're going to be in the play-in tournament. Look, it's not in my nature to speak well of the Clippers, right? That's not me. But you look at the narrative around them right now. You've got a lot of people counting them out, and if they perform above expectations, which could happen because those expectations are so low, people will look at Ty Lue as a reason why. And so I've got him as Coach of the Year this year because I think narrative-wise, they fit that type of team that could come in and exceed expectations and therefore get the attention that a Coach of the Year would get.
Yeah, that's a good one. And the only other guy who's floating around in my mind, Mike Malone. If the Nuggets,
Yes.
let's say they
Same
let's say they
situation.
break into the top
Yep.
two, yeah, I think if they are really rolling and they hit everything right and they're top two in the West, I think he's going to get a lot of love too there. So we're not going to go through all NBA
No.
teams and all rookie teams and defense teams. It's just too much. We've already run a long show at you guys here with this, but yeah. So there's our predictions. Bookmark it, save them, yell at us later.
Save the
Tell us how
receipts.
stupid we were. When you see it, yeah, you can tell us, now, then you can tell us at the end of the season and all those kind of things. And we'll try to revisit these
Sure.
and come back to them. I know I have mine all completely written down, and we'll come back and be like, boy, I was really off on that team or that player or
That's
whatever.
the thing, right? Like we know whatever the stuff we went over just now, we're wrong. We're going to be wrong. Like
Yeah,
there's not
yeah.
it's not like we could say everything is going to be 100% right. So no matter what, 3 months from now, somebody can come back at us and say, well, I can't believe you ranked this team here when really they're here. And that's the nature of sports. If we were 100% right on this, we'd be extremely rich, right? Because
Yeah.
we'd be able to bet all of these things. But I think we made some good educated guesses here in terms of plotting out what could happen in the NBA season. And the fact that we are going to be wrong, the fact that some of these things are not going to be correct, that's why we watch. That's why this is exciting. So we'll see the way it all plays out.
Yeah, absolutely. This first month of the season, just partially because it's back, but it is one of the more fun times because now you see everything come
Mhm.
together of, all right, this is what they thought they'd be. What does it look like? And you get to really understand and, wow, I didn't know so-and-so could do that and those kind
Right.
of things. So yeah, I can't wait tomorrow night. I'll obviously be glued to the TV for the two games, that are on. And then we get kind of the full slate on Wednesday. It's awesome. This is, the NBA season is back.
That's right.
uh, 82 games again, full arenas again. It's like all the stuff that we've been looking for. So I cannot wait for it to all get started.
100%. Let's go. The NBA season is finally here. And Keith, I guess we can talk a little bit about our morning wrap up show that we're still figuring out the title for it and all that. I like the one that you sent me this morning, but after each,
well, let's throw it out there.
That's a great idea.
What do you guys think? Yeah, what do you guys think? Comment in the comments here. You can hit us up on Twitter or whatever if you want. We're thinking about calling our morning wrap-up show the Skip Pass, with the idea of if you had to skip League Pass, we're here to get you all caught up on what you might have missed the night before. The other just stupid idea that I kind of think is funny is NBA TK for Trevor and Keith, just because I think that's kind of funny. Or if you guys have a really great name that's not already out there, like don't tell us The Jump or NBA Today, because those are obviously taken and used. But yeah, so just let us know what you think. Skip Pass or something else. We're open to suggestions.
And I like that Skip Pass is also an action on the basketball court. It's kind of,
exactly,
it's like Zach Lowe has the low post, and you've got some of these other ones that are around there. So it kind of fits in with the theme there. So I do like that.
And let's be clear, we're not changing the name of the show or the channel or anything like that. It's just, this is the sub name of the show or something like that. This is just
bonus content. Right?
Yeah, bonus content, because you're still going to get these shows that are focused on transactions and news and all those things. This is literally going to be Trevor and I kind of whipping through the games pretty quick. The idea is to keep them short. Now, every time we say that, we woefully fail. But we are going to really try to keep these under 20 minutes so that we can get you caught up on what happened the prior night in the league, and just kind of whip through the games, some things that caught our eyes in the games that we watched, some things that maybe jumped out of the box scores if we didn't get to watch a lot of the game, and then kind of surprising things and things like that we see, just to kind of keep you caught up. But we'll be running those shows. We're going to try to record them in the morning on the East Coast time, so that they can be up and in a fairly timely manner. It won't be super duper early because we're both dads and we had dad duty to do first thing in the morning. But then after that, we'll get into that show. But something new and something fun coming for you here on a very it probably won't be fully daily because we'll probably take the weekends off. But if something nuts happens, like incredible game on a Saturday night, we'll make time to talk about it at some point.
So, and we did get really good feedback the last time we did this for preseason, so we're going to incorporate this and make this a regular part of this channel, so you guys will be able to check that out. So if you miss any games or anything, you can hear us come talk about them each day. But let us know your thoughts on that in the comments down below. Don't forget to subscribe right here to the NBA Front Office YouTube channel. Turn on those notifications as well. Till next time, everybody. See ya and stay safe.